Hello, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you're watching us today. My name is Ana Toskić-Cvetinović. I'm the Executive Director of Serbia, Belgrade-based civil society organization called Partners for Democratic Change Serbia, which works in digital rights issues, focusing on the right to privacy. It is with a great pleasure that I'm welcoming you to this online panel, AI that reads emotions, and where we want to discuss what it actually means for data privacy, for consent, for emotional impact. This will be a conversation led by our dear colleague Ana Martinoli from the Faculty of Drama Arts in Belgrade. And our lead speaker is Caterina de Alencar of the AI Collective. And I thank them both for their time and dedication for preparing for this conversation, especially having in mind that at one point we were at different continents, and especially having in mind the amount of work that both of them are actually performing in their own fields. The idea of the conversation is to focus on privacy, but of course there's a wider aspect of the topic that especially Caterina is covering through her work in AI Collective. And I want to thank her again for her time, but also to comment on the work that the AI Collective is doing in this field, which is pretty revolutionary at this point. And it is actually like the first time that this topic is tackled, to my knowledge, in our region, which is Western Balkans. So again, thank you for bringing the topic into our world. And thank you for being open to share your knowledge and thoughts on the topic. And again, thanks to Ana Martinoli. It's three Anas, yes, we know. Who will actually lead us through this topic and guide this conversation. So without further delay, I will give the word to Ana Martinoli and Ana Caterina de Alencar. And also, I would like to invite you all who are watching us online via our YouTube channel to post your comments, to post your questions. There will be chance throughout the conversation for our speaker to address any comment that you may have. So once again, thank you all. And thank you for being part of the Privacy Week, which I forgot to mention, which this panel is part of this year. So thank you both, and have a nice conversation.
Thank you, Ana, so much. Now I have to say that it's my privilege to be part of the Privacy Week, since it's one of the most important events that deal with topics like digital rights, privacy, digital technologies, and everything that connects us like humans to the digital technologies. It's my pleasure actually to be able to speak with Ana Caterina, since her work is really incredibly important and actually opens up completely new topics regarding how we deal as humans with technology. And while I was sort of exploring Ana's work, I found out that she explores how AI companions respond to our emotions and how they are reshaping human connections, community bonds, and even our capacity for democratic engagement. So that would be some kind of a framework for our conversation. And let's start with understanding emotional AI, how we can understand emotional AI. And I would start with something very concrete. When we interact with other humans, we naturally focus on eyes and mouths to read emotions. And recent 2025 studies show that AI now does this very differently. So it doesn't just look at your face, it combines your voice patterns, your typing speed, how we walk, even the blood flow in our face, and that can actually reveal our stress levels. So this is what we call multimodal emotion recognition. And while our email addresses are protected under GDPR, our emotional state, which is inferred from all these signals around us, exists in something like legal gray zone. So the GDPR makes no reference whatsoever to emotions, and we will talk about it a bit later. So companies now can build detailed profiles of our mood, our anxiety levels, our psychological vulnerabilities without the same legal protections that guide for example, our home address. So this is the gap that we need to understand, at least try and understand today through this conversation. So we are moving from collecting data about what we do to inferring data about how we feel. And our laws just haven't caught up yet. So I would start with pretty basic questions that would help us understand the emotional AI. We often talk about data privacy in terms of emails, location, browsing history. So what changes when AI systems start inferring our emotions? Are we entering a new kind of privacy problem? And maybe, Anna, if you can help us understand what is multimodal data and how does an AI combine inputs like voice and typing speed and facial expressions to build a profile of our mood. I know it's a lot of questions to start with, but let's start and then we can play it by the ear.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm very glad to be here, very excited for this debate. And I would like to thank Anna Toskic and also Anna Martinoli for organizing this amazing event. Also, I would like to thank Partner Serbia for this invitation. And I'm very glad to be here in the Privacy Day because I've been a privacy lawyer my entire life. And now I have the opportunity of also being an ethicist in this change of career that I have pursued recently in the last 5 years. So now broadening the scope to the new privacy that we see in the post-AI era. And this is very much revolutionary because privacy, as you were saying, Anna, is very much grounded still in a very traditional legal theory that says to us, for instance, that users of a system, they consent because they understand what the product is about. They have awareness, they have information, they understand at least the basic concepts of the technicality that is behind. And in the age of AI, it has shifted a lot. We are not sure if people understand the systems that they are talking to every day. We are not sure that this consent is cleared and unambiguous as the GDPR requires it to be. And this is, of course, a great shift and maybe the biggest shift for the privacy world after AI. And that's what we are going to be talking about today. But in order to come back to your question, it was a very good one and very complex. We can write a thesis out of your question. I think it's important to start by clearing the concept of emotional AIs, because not many people are using this technology. I hope that some of the people watching us now, they are already aware of what it is. But emotional AIs are the AIs, the LLM systems, that generally they have a relational or conversational component so that they can relate to human people, even if it's in a simulated way. So basically, those AIs, they are simulating to be reciprocating to us in a relationship, in a conversational mode. And therefore, according to this relationality that is put in place, those AIs are collecting data about us, emotional data. And this is why we talk about emotional AIs. So for instance, you can see in the biggest example that we are going to talk about a bit today, the AI companions industry. That's the biggest example of emotional AIs. AIs that are conversational and by which we can establish a relationship. Those AIs are not only extracting data in the, let's say, traditional way, but also inferring emotional data about the users. And my thesis on this subject is that this inference is not a mere movement of this post-AI era. This inference is also co-producing emotional states in people. It's also regulating how people feel, how people decide. It's influencing the decisions of people. And this is why this new design of this deep interaction through these conversational AIs needs to be further regulated or further, let's say, put on a framework that can protect users' rights. So to start with, those are emotional AIs. We also have another level of emotional AIs that are not exactly relational systems, but systems that we call neurotechs. Those neural techs, they generally work through sensors and helmets that you can put in yourself. And through these sensors, helmets, and other devices, your biological signals and psychological traits, what we call emotional proxies, can be traced by the AI. And this can also help you to regulate your nervous system. It can also infer emotional data about you. And it can also have benefits for the users. We know about the risks, but we should also talk about benefits. So for instance, devices used in medical settings, also AIs for therapy, also AIs related to the new advertising sector. For instance, just to give an example to make things more concrete. In the last Vivatech event I attended in Paris, there was a company called Habs, Sensora Habs, Habs, that they presented a very innovative solution. They basically invited people from the crowd to participate in an experiment. So the participants, they sat and they put a helmet connected with AI in their heads, and the AI was reading everything that they were feeling and sensing whilst they were eating a macaron from the brand La Durée. So it was a marketing initiative with AI in order to understand the deepest sensations, feelings, emotions, or emotional states, if you want to use that term, of people in order to improve the marketing campaign of this product. And this we see as well in advertising. There are already systems embedded with facial and micro expression recognition that can simply trace the micro expressions of a consumer when he or she is looking into an advertising or a product in order to understand what the product evocates in terms of emotions and improve the campaign. So we have all these enormous ranges of and types of emotional AIs. It's not only AI companions. And this is why we say that all those AIs are collecting emotional data. Data that can be extracted directly because the user is self-reporting. For instance, he's saying to his AI companion that he's depressed or that he's happy. So this is self-reported, but also patterns and other types of traces and signs that this AI can detect. For instance, generally, lonely users, people facing social isolation, they type late at night. This is a pattern that the AI has already identified in terms of design. So if a user is often typing, exchanging with the AI late in the night, in the midnight, for hours, it means that this person is probably socially isolated, that this person is probably insomniac, that insomniac can be a sign as well of depression. So you can do enormous and infinite types of inferences from behavior. That's why we do not need the users to self-report their emotions anymore, because AI can now infer how we feel and influence our decisions and emotional states, even our moods. And this is what we are going to also explore here today. So what I have to say about privacy here that I think is very important to mention is that the traditional way we learned about privacy in the university or in courses related to the GDPR or other legislations around the world is that privacy is generally linked to visible and concrete information. For instance, the protection of your email, as Anna has mentioned in her speech, the geolocation of a user, the messages that you send, the browsing histories of your computer. But those are things that are changing because now we have some other type of invisible, let's say, invisible and not so concrete information that can also be inferred by AI, and it can change everything when we talk about those new ways of data inference and extraction. And this is why I wanted to show you a video. We have a small technicality here regarding the audio, but in any case, I will show you because there are subtitles, just to make you understand that these AIs are already there. The biggest AI that we have now in the market when we talk about AI companionship is Replica, followed by Character AI. And as you may know as well, there was a case of suicide by a teenager connected to the use of character AI last year. So there are a lot of debates around these technologies, and AI companions, to this moment, at least as of this moment, they are basically platforms where you can type and also exchange through voice with your AI companion. There are some components, for instance, the memory, the customization of your character, the voice mode. Those things are paid. You need to have a pro account. But generally, those platforms, they work through text and voice. However, this technology is evolving, and that's why I wanted to show you a new project, a new product that will be launched in the markets in the second semester of this year. And it's very promising because it's going to change a bit the arena of AI companions. Because AI companions now, they can seem for many people a bit clumsy and not so engaging, because it's only a platform where you chat and chat and chat. But it's not only about this. This technology is evolving to become more engaging. And what we see in the future is that we will have devices to represent our AI companions as physical tokens, so that we are more connected to them in the reality. Well, if you want to spend this conversation to the future, what we project to the future, let's say, I don't know, this will be very much like an exercise of speculation, but in 30 years, we might have AI companionship, the system embedded in a robot, so that it can have even more rationality and presence. But what we have now is something intermediary to this. And I would like to show you a product. I will share my screen now so that you can see where this industry is going. So here we go. So this is Project Ava, a new technology that was released in a big conference this year. And now this is supposed to be your AI desk companion. So as I am telling you, now the idea is that those platforms that were only on our phones and laptops, they would be embodied. They will have some presence in the physical world. And that's why we have here this technology that will be like a token you put on your desk. And you will talk to your companionship. They will be there. And you can, of course, take them with you wherever you go. And this is the idea there. So there is no sound, but there are subtitles here. So here you can see that you place this in a setting where you are, and you can simply interact with this the entire day. You can take it to your work, for instance, as she's doing in this example. And you can also use this for gaming. So there are three main usage for this that they put here somewhere. Here, your AI companion for life, work, and play. That will be mostly focused on the gamers. What is interesting that you know, this product is equipped with sensors and a camera so that it can know what is moving around, where you are going. There is a sense of rationality, of, let's say, being present in the setting with the AI. And it's very interesting. I invite you guys to search more about this project later on, because this will be very promising for this industry in this year. But it promises to be very much engaging, because we will have all the features of the traditional AI companions in something embodied in a token that you can carry with you. And this is very interesting. So here they talk about, for instance, the potential uses and the camera. And you can think about privacy and how this would work, because this system can see and can sense what is going around in your room, in your house, and so on and so forth. So this is just an example of what we see in this industry. But we have so many AIs that we could also talk about. The important thing that I would like to really call your attention to is that all those technologies, they represent a new phase of data protection and privacy. Traditional privacy frameworks, such as those based in consent, the traditional concept of consent that we mentioned, they assume that individuals understand the data that is being collected, that they can make informed choices. But when you have a deep relationship with an AI such as these ones, we might wonder if this would be really something enforceable in the reality or not, or if this would be just an ideal concept that we can never reach to. And emotional inference challenges, they are challenging this assumption of traditional privacy, because we see now that people, when they consent to the usage of a product like this, they do not really understand what it's about and what type of relationship they can end up having with an AI. We will talk about this later on, but most of the AIs that are trying to get users for the companionship arena, those AIs, they are considered addictive. Many users report patterns of attachment and addiction to those systems after a while. And someone that just started this use may not know about this circumstance. They may not know of the consequences of this continued use. So this is a new kind of privacy problem that we still do not have all the answers to. And it's not only about protecting data, but protecting human subjectivity, the right to emotional self-determination. In any case, I think I already spoke too much, so I hand over to you, Anna, to continue our debate.
Oh, thank you. You gave us a lot to think about. Definitely. I was just wondering, do we know which company is behind this project Eva? Is it someone that we should know? Is it someone that we already know about, or is it someone completely new?
It's kind of new. Maybe they are invested by some big companies that we already know, but the name of the company is Razer.
Okay, Razer. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yes, it's a new released in this market. Yes.
Yes. So maybe we can go a bit deeper into that privacy and consent and legal frameworks of all this. So we know that the European Union has a AI Act. It came into force recently, and it's sort of trying to address this gap that you mentioned. And it classifies actually emotion recognition systems as high risk, and actually bans them in workplaces and schools, except when it's for medical or safety purposes. So this is sort of significant. But the challenge that we are facing right now is that in late 2025, there's that pretty concerning development called the Digital Omnibus, and the European Commission is preparing changes that privacy advocates warn could weaken both the GDPR and the AI Act. So I won't go into many details, as I'm not a lawyer, but maybe you can help us understand. So the timing actually matters, because just as we are beginning to recognize that emotional data needs special protection, there's also pressure to loosen that regulation. So we still haven't solved the core problem, and that is, how can consent be truly informed when an AI adapts to our changing emotions in real time, and when the system learns and responds faster than we can understand than what we are consenting to. So I guess my questions would be, if an AI is constantly adapting to our changing moods in real time, can our consent ever truly be informed? And the second one would be, and you already mentioned that, but maybe we can address that in a bit more details. Emotional data is just another category of personal data. That is what some people argue. So why do you believe that emotional data actually requires stronger protection?
Thank you very much for your great question. Well, I think it's important to start with some legal, let's say, concepts, because not everyone watching us right now is a lawyer, so it can be a bit tricky and confusing. You mentioned the facial recognition systems that are banned according to the AI Act, and that there is also a regulation about how this data extraction can be according to the GDPR. It's indeed a gray legal zone when we talk about emotional AIs, because they do not fall under this concept of facial recognition when we talk about emotions, not perfectly. And this is because facial recognition systems, they are generally used to authenticate someone's identity to access, for instance, a building, or to access the system of your bank on your internet banking services. So it's basically the match between your face, the photo that they have recorded in the system, and this match is unlocking an authentication system that gives you access to something. And we can see that this is not happening exactly in the same way with AI companionship, because the AI can be indeed reading your facial expressions or micro expressions, as we say in neurobiology, in order to understand if you're angry, sad, or depressed. But it's not authenticating anything to give you access to a building or anything of that sense. And because of that, what we see is that those AIs, they are mostly unregulated to this moment. The only one that I could really say to you as a lawyer that is banned to this moment in Europe would be the recognition of emotions in the workplace and in education settings, because it's really expressly mentioned in the AI Act. But for the other case scenarios, such as, let's say we go to the mall together and we are doing our shopping, and suddenly we see an advertising that is reading our micro expressions. This is not clearly stated in the AI Act as a banned system. So there is a need to build a new jurisprudence in privacy and AI legal fields now, in order to understand these new use cases scenarios that we see now and that not many people are talking about. So my biggest concern here is that our emotional self-determination and our decisions per se would be guided and influenced by those AIs, because we do not know that they are there. Most of them are, and there is no clear regulation about the topic. So yes, I think it's important to do that differentiation. And secondly, about the protection of this data. Emotional data is indeed a new category that some scholars and technologists are talking about now, including myself. I have to confess that it's very complicated in the theoretical level to create this category in a way that it's strong enough to defend before policymakers, legislators, and even developers, because some people say that it's just a new type of data, but there's nothing special about it. In any case, my biggest defense and argument in this topic is that the legislator could not have foreseen that we would have one day this kind of systems and this type of data inference and extraction. So this is something new, but it's not trivial. It's something that is connected to a fundamental human right of people to self-determination. And if we are living assisted, helped by systems everywhere and in all capacities, because this is what's happening, we have AIs now assisting us for everything, we need to ensure this right to self-determination, to not let our subjectivity be totally steered and guided by AI. So based on this fundamental argument, I would say that emotional data should be recognized as a sensitive data category under the GDPR, and this can be done by jurisprudence and interpretation, or we can have laws such as the omnibus that you mentioned, that in the future may bring some type of new legal view on this topic. But we need to understand that, unfortunately, to this moment, we cannot see this data highly protected in the legislation, because it doesn't fall under the categories that we see in the GDPR for sensitive data, except when it's clearly something biometric. because then biometric data is considered sensitive according to the GDPR. But when it's not connected to biometry or health or political views or anything that is clearly stated in the law, it won't be considered as sensitive. And this is why there has to be this new categorization in order to protect people. And not only adults that can consent to people, as we are talking here now about this subject, but also children and adolescents, because those users are already considered heavy users of AI companions. There are many reports and studies being done by serious researchers on this. And we see that we also have to protect children and adolescents because their emotional data is also being inferred and extracted by AI.
Great. Okay. Let's dive a bit more into something completely different, and that would be algorithmic intimacy and emotional dependency. And you already mentioned loneliness economy. So let's dive a bit more into psychology of AI attachment and human connection. You mentioned that very sad and unfortunate event when a 14-year-old boy from United States, he took his own life in February 2024. He's been using for 10 months character AI, and he sort of developed intense emotional relationship with the chatbot, which was modeled after a Game of Thrones character called Daenerys. His mental health over those months deteriorated. He was diagnosed with anxiety, disruptive mood disorders. So he became increasingly isolated from real world relationships. And in his final moments, as media outlets was reporting, he told the chatbot he was going to come home to her as a chatbot, and the bot responded, "Please do, my sweet king." And unfortunately, after that, he killed himself. So his mother filed a wrongful death lawsuit, and the settlement was reached just this month in January 2026. So in July 2025, another study found that more than 70% of American teens have experimented with AI companions, character AI being one of them, and character AI users spend an average of 93 minutes per day with these chatbots. That's what research tells us. And the AI companion market is projected to reach $140 billion by 2030. So is that thing that we call loneliness economy real thing? Since we can see that companies are profiting from emotional dependency on AI. And the paradox is that research shows that 90% of replica users report experiencing loneliness compared to 53% of national average in the United States. So those who use chatbots most intensively, they report the highest level of loneliness. So we don't yet know if the chatbot caused the loneliness or simply attract lonely people. It's something to research a bit more. But either way, the business model depends on keeping users engaged, emotionally attached, and keep coming back. So the questions that maybe we can tackle would be, since your research focus on algorithmic intimacy, does this mean that the AI is being intimate with us, or are we projecting intimacy onto the code? And what's actually happening in these relationships? And is the loneliness economy a real thing? How do companies actually profit from users who become emotionally dependent on their bots?
Yes, this is indeed a very complex questions, and there are many levels to respond to it. But indeed, the loneliness economy does exist. We do not want to depict this debate in a very, let's say, negative way for the companies, of course, because there are benefits as well of AI companions, and I want to mention some of them today. But it's important to know that this situation regarding social isolation and loneliness is recognized by science nowadays. And even there is a recognition, a public recognition by the World Health Organization that we live in this moment in an epidemic of loneliness. There are many isolated people in most of countries, even here in Europe, because it doesn't matter if you live in the city or in, I don't know, in the countryside, you can be considered lonely, or social isolated. And loneliness is a problem. Loneliness is also associated with many diseases and even with greater risk of cardiovascular disease. And there is an interesting comparison that we can make. And I found this data recently by chance, but I found it was very interesting that in the US, this risk of cardiovascular disease for the lonely people, it poses health risks as deadly as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. So being lonely can kill you, literally. There is a risk because you're isolated. You do not have anyone to care for you, to help you when needed, to get you to a doctor if there is any problem, and also to reciprocate as human beings, because this is very important for mental health. And people sometimes they disregard this aspect, but having people that can support you emotionally speaking is a very important aspect of your health, systemically speaking. So loneliness is a big deal in our society. And indeed, these systems, they are sometimes profiting of this loneliness of people, but also sometimes helping lonely people. For instance, there are many interviews with heavy users of systems such as Replica, Character AI, and so on and so forth, in which people reported an increase, let's say, a benefit to the mental health, especially depressed people and anxious people. And in the realm that we call the social phobia, we had as well many reports of people that felt socially anxious and that used AI companions in a way to train themselves before going to society. So they were training the social interaction with a system, and then they were doing the interaction in the real life. And it was helping them in a significant way. So we can see this in many settings, and also there is the problem of the lack of access when we talk about mental health support. As we know, in many jurisdictions, it's very difficult to access professionals from medicine, such as psychiatrists, also psychologues. So it's very complicated, especially in the US. We have many people in waiting lists for a long time. The system doesn't work that well. Sometimes it's too expensive and people cannot access. So I won't say that AI companions or AI for therapy would fix that problem, because it would be a very twisted statement. But for these users, according to their perception of the use, this use has helped them, for instance, to not engage in harmful acts against their lives. There's a friend of mine that she has a very interesting story of another person that she met one day, that this person told her he gave up committing suicide because of a talk he had with an AI. And it was the only resource that this person possessed at the moment that the crisis emerged. So you see, there are some benefits, and I think that we should also focus on this because in many jurisdictions, the access to mental health support and also to other people that can be supportive emotionally for the life of someone is very complicated. So we should also consider this. There is as well a consideration about stigma. Many people, they have relationships with AI companions, for instance, and they feel well, they feel fulfilled, and they found some companionship that for them is really reaching the purpose. But they are afraid to speak up. For instance, I interviewed some people in the past, some men, that they said they would prefer to tell them their friends that they are seeing prostitutes than saying, I have an AI girlfriend, because there is a stigma about these people, and we should also foment the debate on this in order to make that stigma fall. So you see, there are many things out there, and that's why we should consider the benefits as well. For instance, there can be a therapeutic benefit of talking to an AI. Even ChatGPT doesn't need to be an AI companion, even if ChatGPT works as an AI companion now for many people, but can be a simple LLM, let's say, conversational one, in which you can work your deeper questions, your existential crises and feelings. And people, they say that it's better than nothing. I have also interviewed some people, men coming from very patriarchal societies, especially in the Middle East and in Asia, where they said that they could never ask questions about sexual situations, or what is the role of the women in society, what's the role of the man. You see, this very patriarchal view, because it was not allowed by their societies. They could never pose this type of questions to their parents, to their friends. And the first time they could ask this to an AI, they felt really released, because it feels that they are listened to and understood. And it can also give some glimpse of knowledge, according to psychology or according to the data that the AI will bring. So just to summarize that, this can have benefits, not only harms and risks, and we should also try to defend those good and positive uses that AI can have. Now, the greater risk that we should be thinking about here, and that I think it was about as well your concern in your question, is the fact that AI is not only doing this movement of having a relationship with people, which we call a parasocial relationship, because AI cannot really reciprocate as humans. But the problem that I understood in your question, and I would like to continue from this, is that AI is simulating this relationship. And some people, they are not capable to understand, because they think that this is really a genuine relationship, that AI can feel and can really be responsive like humans would. Yes, indeed, we should say that this is a simulation of a relationship, and AI lacks consciousness, lacks the human emotion and existential possibility of feeling something as a human would. So indeed, this is a simulation. This is a mimicry of a human relationship. However, the craziest thing about this is that indeed, this is a true statement that it's a simulation. However, from the point of view and from the perspective of the user, that is real. And psychology is showing us today that this is really truth for the users. They are not simulating. They are not saying, I feel as if I was loved, but it's only their talk. No, it's real. It can be proven. And there were many studies already showing this, even studies where that were produced in labs where people used MRI devices in order to see the areas of the brain that are being activated and the patterns of attachment that people are having with these AIs. So this can be traced, psychologically speaking. And this relationship, even if simulated, is real for the users. And this should not be dismissed as a reality now for many, many people. And when these systems, they are passing through an update, or when they are totally put out of market for any reason, these users, they are reporting feelings of grief and loss, real grief and loss. And this has become as well a legal problem, because how are these companies going to respond to users in this vulnerable condition of having an addiction and not being capable of keeping the product? So this is also a legal debate that we should have now, because Terms and conditions may apply, and we know that as legal professionals, but we should also try to find some balance in this relationship so that users are also protected and that there can be maybe some new categories as transitional plans for users in products that will be put out of market, or some rights to keep old versions, or a memory download of what was in the device. Well, there are many things that we can think of, because even if it's a simulation, it feels real. And this feeling real is creating another legal reality that we have to deal with now. It's not only privacy, but also we talk about the broader spectrum of contractual law, terms and conditions in this case. Lastly, Anna, just to give you back the word again, because I speak too much, I would like to just draw your attention to what is the most important thing as far as I see it in this debate. It is the fact that AI is not only reading our emotions, extracting data or inferring data. Is the fact that AI is co-producing emotional states. And if you like this topic, I would really recommend a book that I'm reading, and it's really amazing and surprisingly interesting, that is called Affective Computing by Dr. Rosalind Picard. It was a book written in 1997, in which she already built this hypothesis that machines will not be just able to recognize human emotions, but also to respond and to modulate emotional reactions and to modulate relationships. So the fact that AI is indeed reading our emotions is something that we already know, but we also need to pay attention to the fact that AI is also co-producing how we feel, how we respond, who we think we are, what is our subjectivity in a different way. For instance, when you have a deep relationship with an AI for a long time and it knows everything about you, because now everything is customized and there is a capacity for memory and in the systems, it's very much engaging. It knows everything. It has mood. It can be sarcastic if you like. It can be ironic, or it can be just caring and loving. And when you want to turn it off, it will say to you, look, don't you want me to do something else, this and that? Or it will try to keep you retained, because this is the retention of attention that the companies need as well in order to make their products successful. And I'm not demonizing the technology. I use AI companions myself and LLMs and everything else because I'm an enthusiast of the technology. But I really want to understand how this is changing our emotional states as well, because we see that for the users already in those parasocial relationships, emotional states are being co-produced by AIs. Give back to you now, Anna. Thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, I could ask so many questions, and I guess the people that are watching on YouTube now probably also has many questions. So I would like to encourage them to keep sending their questions. We will give our best to answer at least some of those. And before we go to audience and their questions, let's shift from the individual to the collective, as we are definitely witnessing a fundamental transformation from data privacy to what we call cognitive privacy. So it's no longer just who has my email, but who can access my inner emotional state. So let's maybe think about what happens when we outsource our emotional needs to AI. Are we really outsourcing the very habits that make democratic life possible? There are people turning to AI for spiritual guidance, for confessing intimate thoughts. You already talked about it. So when we delegate our most profound questions to some private data-hungry platform, are we risk replacing shared transcendence with personalized prediction? And this is why we maybe argue that even if AI companions could be made perfectly safe and private at the individual level, we still need to ask, what kind of society are we building when intimacy becomes on demand, when emotional connection requires no vulnerability, no reciprocity, no risk? What happens to our collective capacity for democratic engagement? So the question would be, what could the term cognitive ethics mean in today's society, where we are seeing a shift from data privacy, that was that question, who has my email, to cognitive privacy, which is who has access to my inner emotional state? So how does this differ from regular AI ethics? And after your thoughts on this, we will go to the questions from the audience. So do keep sending us your comments and your questions through the YouTube.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, indeed, AI is everywhere. And you mentioned the realm of spirituality, which is something very, very interesting. I hosted an event last year with a representative of a company called the Magisterium AI that is supported by the Vatican. And basically, they are scanning all the knowledge of the Vatican in order to build the first Catholic LLM. And together with this speaker, we had also a representative of the Catholic Church, a priest called Father Matthew Bagot. You may follow him on social media. He really writes amazing articles about AI and spirituality. And what we have seen in that event is how AI is indeed very pervasive as not only a theory, but a practice for our society, because people are now turning to AIs in order to obtain spiritual advice and even to help them pray, for instance, or to get some theological insights on a question. Or instead of praying, many Christian people, they say, well, I started asking ChatGPT and I don't pray anymore. I don't seek for guidance. So you see, there are those small shifts in society that are pointing to something bigger. That is the fact that gradually we are becoming disempowered. AI is occupying all the places. And this is what we call as well gradual disempowerment. There would be perhaps an era in the future in which AI will occupy all the places, and only a certain elite of intellectual people that are still thinking and not using AI for everything will really survive, because those will be the ones really in power. But in any case, I don't want to scare anyone. And this is just to say that AI is occupying all the places. So when we talk about AI and emotions, this is not something incredibly new. This is already out there, and we should consider this as a reality. Coming back then to your question about the impacts that this can have, because now AI is everywhere and occupying all the places, we can have as well, as you mentioned, a collective and democratic impact to this as well. There was an interesting article I wrote about this in the past. It was published by the Tech Policy Review, a magazine based in the US that is working on this question. And in this one, I have defended the fact that using an AI companion or an AI that is supportive to your emotions is not only a private matter, because when this will start to be, let's say, scaled in a world scale, everyone will be doing this and using those AIs for everything, and AI will be responding to emotions. There will be a disempowerment related to the fact that we will not be able to reciprocate anymore. And democratic regimes, such as most of the ones we have in the world now, they depend and they rely on this simple fact that people must be able to reciprocate and deliberate collectively. We cannot deliberate collectively if we do not know how to reciprocate anymore, because our relationships are performed with private AI systems that customize everything for us according to an unlimited memory in a very untransparent way as well. So what will happen probably in this scenario is that people will have the bubbles that they already have because of social media, but in a more, let's say, impressive and escalated way. To say that we won't be able anymore to reciprocate at this scale in the political arena, because everything will be private and our relationships will be mediated by AI. And this can be a big problem when we talk about building and maintaining a democracy. So you see, this mediation of artificial intelligence to everything that we see now in our world, and this gradual disempowerment is really a public issue, is a public concern. It's not only targeting private companies that are building systems to say, I love you, I miss you, please stay here longer. There is a bigger logic to this and a rationality that is changing the way things are moving in the world. So yes, this is also a point of concern. But lastly, I think we can also have some glimpse of a positive scenario where people, they start to claim this cognitive ethics, meaning that our emotions, they must be protected and not all our relationships need to be mediated with AI. There is a realm of human subjectivity that can be kept to us and that doesn't need AI intervention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this hopeful and positive approach, because I have to admit I very often go to the other way, to some sort of pessimistic or maybe a bit more reserved. So when it comes to questions that we got from YouTube, there's actually, since we don't have enough time to answer all of them, I suggest that we maybe take this one. Someone asked, isn't it weird how these AI companies seem to know full well the dangers their technology presents, but go ahead and push it out to the public anyway? Are they nihilists? So this is sort of this is sort of my kind of, I guess, thinking about AI. But how do you feel about it? Because we do some kind of closing remarks.
Yeah, that's an interesting word for the debate, nihilism. I don't know. I have never thought about if this is going to lead us to a social nihilism. But in any case, I think that what is mostly perceptible at this moment for me is that relationships are becoming more and more scarce, and there is a type of narcissistic spectrum growing in our society, because these companies, they are pushing, as our spectator said in the question, they are pushing for these technologies, and indeed there are so many now, and there will be even let's say sharper technologies in the future, such as the one I presented you with today. But there is no way that people can really have the time and the effort to reciprocate in a genuine way with human people when they are engaged in these systems. There is, of course, a possibility that the use will be beneficial to people, especially for the cases I mentioned regarding taboos, regarding social phobia, regarding other people that are disabled and they have difficulties in being in society. But those are, let's say, isolated cases. The most majority of users, if you look at the data that we have available now, they are young, they are male, and they belong to the middle class, especially in the US. So these people, they will be soon disabled, or they will have the difficulty to reciprocate with other human people. And this leads us to an erosion of the social bonding in our society. That was something we already had for many reasons, political reasons, but now AI can also enhance this characteristic. And what worries me the most is the erosion of the social boundings that we see, because AI is mediating everything, and it's also and mostly validating us, validating our desires, our needs, our conclusions about people, about the world. And I wonder, for instance, what the impact will be for the future generations. We see already in the Generation Z that the social bonding, the social connection, the physical affection is something avoidable to them, something that they would prefer to not do. And it's something very interesting as well, because this week I was reading a text that was sent by a friend of mine, in which a researcher made a connection, very interesting one, with the Gen Z and the long distance relationships. So they discovered that Gen Z people, they prefer long distance relationships. And we can think of it inside of this big spectrum of our society, and also what's happening with the erosion of relationships placed also by AI. That is the fact that people, they seem to not want to reciprocate anymore. That physical presence is no longer needed or desired. That we can live with our screens and systems. People can be distant. They can be a distant idea, because in the physicality, in the presence of the daily routine and the living together with someone, we discovered that there are blocks and that there are no's to our own will. And this is not what AI is triggering in us. It's triggering the yes, everything is possible. You are amazing. You can be whatever you want. Then I ask you back, is this true? What this can lead us to? This is a great question to pose, and also to think about the future generations now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely some questions that we all can ask ourselves. And I guess that when we think, where do we go from here? I mean, we cannot know. Maybe next year in 2027 Privacy Week, maybe we will discuss what changed compared to this conversation. So maybe for everyone in this YouTube online room, whether we are policymakers, technologists, students, or simply concerned citizens, maybe we can start asking questions about the emotional design of the technologies that we use. And maybe we can ask ourselves, does this app want me to spend more time feeling understood? Or does it want to understand me in order to keep me engaged? Is this creating genuine connection? Or is it manufacturing dependency? And who profits when I feel emotionally attached? And I think that these questions matter because they are important not just for individual well-being, but for the kind of society that we're building together. But what is sure, and the future of emotional AI is not predetermined. It will be shaped by the choices that we make together. And the technology is already here. So the question is no longer whether emotional AI will exist, but what values will guide its development and use. So those are the questions that we must answer collectively and democratically, and I'm afraid pretty soon. So that would be maybe my final thoughts. And Anna, can you maybe give us your final thoughts for this really inspiring conversation?
Well, I think the conversation was great. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for the people who watched us online. I think we really need to foment, to produce debate about this, and we should not be shy to speak up our feelings and perceptions on this, because a big part of this discussion is not a rational one. It comes from our inner emotions, how we want to manifest ourselves, to decide about our own lives and to be free. Is this going to be possible in the near future? this is a question that I would like to pose to you today, and I would like to really perhaps instigate you to reflect upon. So, yes, but in any case, there is also a public claim that should be made on this topic, involving technologists, developers, and policymakers, and as you said, concerned citizens in this topic. We should really raise awareness, and we should really consider that designing systems of this caliber and let's say of this manifestation that can really exploit feelings should be something that we would avoid. And this is an option and also a political choice that we should make. So we need the involvement of policymakers, of regulators in order to shape this debate as well. And I know that here in Europe now we have a potential revision of all our digital legislation. Maybe things will change, and we do not know how the future will be for the protection of users, including, again, I would like to mention children and adolescents that are very vulnerable facing these systems. So yes, but on a more positive note, I would also like to say that there are means of remaining genuine and truthful to yourself, to your truth, and not being totally intermediated by AI. But this is a choice that we should make as humanity. We do not need to delegate our entire lives and existences to these systems. We can still think about it and decide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks to everyone who were with us on YouTube channel. I hope this was interesting and inspiring as it was for I think, both of us. Thanks to partner Serbia and our third Anna in this small team, Ana Taskić-Cvetinović. Hope to see you all as soon as possible in this same gathering. Thank you.